out in tents as the city is being built. As the city is being built. And Akhenaten calls his new city Akhenaten. It's two words. You're familiar with the Aten already. That's the solar disk. Akhet is the word for horizon. It's the horizon of the Aten. And when he gets there, they erect boundary stela. These are round-top stones that we've been talking about that are carved to mark the delineation of he marks the city out. Right? This is boundary markers. And the boundary stela tell us a great deal. Great deal. At one of the boundary stelas, he kind of holds what I call his Sermon on the Mount. He gathers around the followers, and he tells them, the Aten showed him this site, the Aten. Now, how did it show him the site? Now, I'll tell you a strange thing that happened to me. He says, it appeared to him and showed him the site. That's what he says. When I was at Akhenaten, the modern Tel El Amarna, when I was there, now, it must be 5 years ago now, I was in this small hotel. It's not a tourist area. There's not much to see, and it's difficult to get there because there are fundamentalists in the area. I was in this little hotel. I got up about, 5, 6 in the morning. And I looked out my window, and I just said, whoa. The hieroglyph for horizon, Akhet, is a notch in the mountain with the sun coming over it. And out my window was a big notch in the mountain with the sun coming right over it. I mean, I have no doubt that that is what Akhenaten saw. I mean, when he says the Aten showed him where to build, that's what he saw. So there's a bit of a religious vision that he talks about. But he also says interesting things in the Sermon on the Mount, and it's carved on the boundary stela. He says there can be no image fashioned of the Aten. In other words, there can be no statues. No statues. This is an abstract god. Another change, right? And he says, I as Pharaoh will never leave the city. This is the holy city.
Hello. How are you guys doing today? Okay. So, we're continuing ancient Egypt. We're talking about Akhenaten. I'm butchering the name, but I'm sorry. My Egyptian's a little off. So, in this brief section, he has referred to the Bible twice, if you notice. First he said the Sermon on the Mount. So when he's gathering his people up, this is like his Sermon on the Mount. Okay, that's a reference to the Bible. And as I said, this guy is well informed on Bible verses. So it's almost like he's verifying the authenticity of the Bible with the stories and the archaeological evidence from Egypt. Egypt was a real place. Egypt actually happened. There are carvings, there are pictures, there are drawings. We have proof. Egypt is real. We don't have proof of Israel. All we have is a book that somebody wrote years after the actual people were dead. So, who can collaborate this? Nobody. However, things happened in the ancient past that would coincide and corroborate the stories in the Bible. And he mentions things all throughout the series. So, for a lot of people whose faith was maybe wavering, I think this just shed a new light on religion for them. He also mentioned the sun god being the one and only true God. and that you shouldn't make any temples dedicated to the god. Okay. Now, this is before the Bible was written. This is before Moses. This is before John the Baptist. And already we're seeing that Akhenaten's God believes that, well, Akhenaten believes that you should not make any graven images of God. Now, as another parallel, Akhenaten believed that the sun, the sun, the literal sun, was God, or at least a representation of God. Now, in the Bible, it says that Moses communicated with a burning bush, a ball of fire, and the actual sun. A lot of people say you can't take away from the Bible and you can't put anything in the Bible. You can't add to the Bible. But if the Bible was corrupted from the beginning, then the information that we have is false. Why is it that a lot of pastors and preachers and evangelists don't teach the whole Bible? Why do they choose and pick certain passages? Yeah, a lot of them have a spiritual calling, and they will they'll choose the passage that relates to that sermon for the day. But at the same time, a lot of things get overlooked. And I think that's because if they talk about it, then they have to answer certain questions that either they don't want to answer because the jig will be up, or they just simply don't have the answer to it. We as Negroes in America have been through hell, and we're still going through hell. So I just want the truth. I want the truth about who I am, who my people were, what was taken from me, and how can I get it back. I don't want to go through roam the rest of the earth for the rest of my days, not knowing who I am or where I come from. I live in an area where there are all kinds of people from different walks of life who still speak their old language. And I'm like, wow, that's nice, that's cool. You know, you're 20-something years old, you're 30-something years old, and you still speak, you know how to speak your native language? I don't. All I speak is English. Now, I speak different dialogues of English. A little Southern English, some broken English, some hood English. You know, if you could put that on a resume, then yeah, I could say I was bilingual. But nah, I don't think that works like that. But yeah, I speak different dialogues of English, depending on who I'm talking to. I said it before and I say it again. As we dive deeper into this series, you will hear a lot of comparisons to the Bible. What we know for certain is that there is archaeological evidence of Egypt's existence. There is no evidence of the Bible. However, from my understanding of what I've been hearing, parts of ancient Egypt's history coincide with the stories of the Bible. And Professor Breyer says this himself. So it's not like I'm lying. That's why I bought the series online. This is my copy, and I wanted to share it with you guys. A lot of you people probably don't read. A lot of you people don't want to pay $50 for a book, but that's okay. I was that kid in the in school. If you didn't have a book, I'd share mine with you. So think of it that way. You don't have your book, class is getting ready to start. Hey, you can read off my book. So that being said, let's learn some more.
I will never leave it. Now think about what that does to society. He's the pharaoh who's supposed to lead the military. He's supposed to march out. He's supposed to do this. No more military. Change is the third pillar of society. You're not going to have an army led by a pharaoh anymore. He's changing absolutely everything. And he says, only I know the Aten. It's an amazing thing. He builds a city. There must have been construction workers coming from Thebes. You know, jobs are good. We got building. You know, it's building boom, and the city is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I mean, it was different. It was art. Artists were free. You know, he's showing things that are totally new now. I mean, for example, he's shown as deformed, right? He was shown as kind of deformed. His daughters, and he has 6 daughters. 6 daughters are all depicted as having very elongated heads. Almost hydrocephalic. Now, we don't know, was the whole family deformed? Was this an art style? That's a debate. That's a debate. But everybody is shown, and sometimes Nefertiti, the beautiful Nefertiti, is shown almost like Akhenaten on some carvings on temple walls. She looks like Akhenaten. You almost can't tell the difference. Right? So big things are happening. But he builds this city in the desert. It was beautiful. The pavement was painted with birds flying out of rushes. Artists were free. It was no longer paint by numbers. It was, hey guys, go to it. And it was amazing. There were nobles' houses. There was a northern and southern suburb. Right? There were suburbs. It was a big city. There were temples open to the sun. It was an entire city built at one time to the glory of one God. The tombs of the nobles are kind of interesting. They give you a clue, right, to something going on. First of all, they're on the east bank, right? On the east bank. Usually they're on the west, associated with dead, but there are no cliffs on the west bank, so they buried them on the east. But maybe it's not important. They're not Osiris worshippers anymore. You're not going to Osiris. None were ever completed. None of the nobles' tombs are completed. We're not sure what happened. We're not even sure if there was a belief in an afterlife during this period. He never talks about the next world. I mean, he's really changing everything. When he died, he was buried in what's called the royal tomb, an isolated tomb miles away from the city, in a wadi, a valley, a depression. And it looks a little like the Valley of the Kings. It's quite interesting. It looks like the Valley of the Kings. But in this city, he ruled for 17 years. Right? They lived actually at the holy city, Akhenaten, for about a dozen years. And in this city, monotheism began. Akhenaten was a religious leader. He wasn't the pharaoh of Egypt anymore. You know, it was like his job was to be the religious leader, and when it came to politics and everything else, it went by the boards. He wrote the prayers. He wrote himself the actual prayers that were recited in the temples. And you know, if you read them, they're very impressive. This is powerful poetry. This is not religious texts that are cranked out. Let me give you a little part. I wish I had a Charlton Heston voice, you know, because it's really great stuff. But just a part of it, there's a long poem he wrote called The Hymn to the Aten. The Hymn to the Aten. And it says, remember, this is a solar disk. When you fill the 2 lands with your love, august God who fashioned himself, who made every land, created what is in it, all peoples, all herds and flocks, all trees that grow from soil, they live when you dawn for them. Now, there's an interesting message here. He's the God of everyone. He's the God of the Syrians. He's the God of the Palestinians. He's the God of the Nubians. He's the God of everybody. Interesting. It changes divine order. Egypt is no longer special in a sense. The Aten shines on everyone. And he says, when you dawn, their eyes observe you. As your rays light the whole earth, every heart acclaims your sight. When you are risen in their Lord, as their Lord, when you set in the sky's western light land, they lie down as if to die. So everything moves with the sun, and when he goes down, that's it. And then we have a little bit of elitism at the end. Akhenaten says, I am your son who serves you, who exalts your name. Your power, your strength are firm in my heart. Only Akhenaten really knows the Aten. It must have been a very confusing time for the Egyptians. Not just this monotheism thing, but it's a different kind of God. It's a different kind of God. It's a God who's abstract. They never had an abstract God. They had gods that you could crank out in statues. You could sculpt a statue of Isis suckling the infant Horus. You could have a statue of Osiris. This is the rays of the sun? That's the God? It was amazing. Now, another thing about the art, it's not just the way Akhenaten's presented, not just the way his kids are presented, his wife. He is shown in everyday life with his kids. There are wonderful paintings of him he's got two little daughters on his lap, and one kid is eating, or you got a picture of one kid eating a duck, a sticky duck. She's got, sticky fingers, and she's eating this duck. These are scenes that never appeared before in Egypt. He was, in a sense, a family man, sort of showing family values. Egyptians never saw anything like this. But we know something tragic happens. Tragic. Egypt is being ignored. He's out in the middle of the desert, this religious mystic, but he's not running the country. The military isn't going out. We're not sure exactly what's happening in the country. We do know that there's diplomatic correspondence. We have records of foreign diplomats, Akhenaten's diplomats, writing back to him. We have the correspondence found at Tel el-Amarna, at Akhenaten. And you know what it says? We're not respected anymore. Send the army. No response. Another letter comes maybe a year later. They're attacking my house. Send the army. I mean, one guy, Ribadi, sent about 10 letters. Said, I'm like a bird in a net. I'm caught. Save me. Why don't you answer my letters? Akhenaten didn't seem to care about the physical world. He was the high priest of this new religion, and Egypt was going downhill. It was an amazing time. Eventually, he dies in the 17th year of his reign. We don't have a record of his death. It simply stops at year 17. You wonder, what are the people going to do? Are they going to, their religious leader is dead. Do they follow the old religion? Do they follow the new religion? What are you going to do? There must have been quite a bit of debate about this. But let me say this. There's a real legacy of Akhenaten. He was really preaching a religion of love. But in a sense, he was a kind of flower child. He wanted everybody to be happy, love everybody. But it didn't quite work that way. It didn't.
Oh, man.
But there's a real legacy. It's the first monotheism in the history of the world. And a great Egyptologist, James Henry Breasted, called him the first individual in the history of the world, meaning it's the first time that we really can see we have a name of an individual whose ideas changed the world, really changed it. He was a religious visionary. Some people kind of view him as a loser. The great excavator, Donald Redford, who spent his life excavating the monument to Akhenaten, views him as a lazy guy. He says, if we characterize his reign, it's characterized by sloth. Some people view him as just as kind of crazy. But I think also he was certainly a religious visionary. And these are real legacies that he's left of. But he's left one more legacy. Probably the most famous. His son, Tutankhamun. We'll talk about him next time.
All right. So, what can I say? Pharaoh Akhenaten is a Looney Tune. by all accounts, he is a Looney Tune, eccentric. He is. Don't want to say eccentric. Is that the right word to use? Yeah, I like Looney Tune better. He he's on to something. Clearly, he's on to something. It's been a while since I read my Bible, but I do remember some things from my childhood. Like, what's that one passage that says, when God gives his word, it does not come back void? Ooh, excuse me. So, that being said, in the grand scheme of things, God has always reached out to us to get our attention. He's always chose a few people to send his message. And they've always been met with opposition. They've always been considered crazy. Don't know what they're talking about. Uneducated. Not of the same social class as those who are in charge. So I don't know. What can we say about old Akhenaten? And then you wonder, he married Queen Nefertiti, and one of his sons, one of his children, I should say, I believe he only had one son, but one of his children was the famous King Tut. So, what happens there? Does King Tut continue on with his father's legacy, or does he go back to the old ways? Ha. Well, we'll find out a little more about that one in our next discussion. I'll chat with you guys later.